This is always the best part. No more milling, no cutting, no more sanding, and no more dust. Once the finish has cured, it's nothing but best wishes and goodbyes. Gratitude for the tree gods who took the time to produce this beautiful piece of wood and for allowing me to be its builder. Okay, I'm not gonna go too crazy with all this philosophical stuff, but after all, this is inspired by George Nakashima. I think most people who are serious about woodworking and the history of design and furniture know about George. His story is very inspiring, and his way of thinking was truly unique, as he believed that trees had spirits of their own, and by harvesting its timber, we as woodworkers have an opportunity, or maybe an obligation, to allow that spirit to live on in a piece of furniture. Now, I was under the impression that very few people knew about George outside of the hardcore woodworking community, and especially in Sweden. So I was pleasantly surprised, to say the least, when I was asked to build a Nakashima-inspired coffee table. So what follows is a pretty much step-by-step video about making this table. So first off, this is not going to be your normal size coffee table. It ended up being 170 centimeters long by 100 and up to 155 centimeters wide. So it's fairly huge. Step one is then, of course, to grab some big slabs and start breaking them down. Just before starting this project, I had moved my big router sled table to a different area of the building, and so before using it, I had to make sure it was sitting absolutely flat on the floor again. And I'm just trying to get the point across here that the slabs only end up being as flat as the actual machine doing the flattening. So of course I try and set it up as good as I possibly can. Once it's dialed in, however, this step goes pretty easy. As with any big slab project, there's always going to be some defects to address. And these were fairly clean, except for a knot that wasn't structurally sound at all, and some minor checking. I'm pretty confident old George would be rolling over in his grave if he saw me pouring a bunch of epoxy to fill these voids. And though we never really talked about it, I did get the feeling from the client that he too felt the same. So I made sure to clean it all up, making everything nice and smooth. We'll return to these defects a little later on when we add the bow ties. But first I wanted to get the tabletop to its more or less final size. The species I'm using is ash. Of course, George did most of his work using walnut, but unfortunately we don't have any walnut trees in Sweden. But these were nonetheless absolutely stunning. Since this was going to be a book match of two pieces, it's very important to get the mirroring of the grain just right, while simultaneously making sure both halves of the tabletop ends up being the same width. It is not particularly difficult, but it does take a little bit of tinkering to get it just right. The two halves are held together with steel C-channels, which are installed on the bottom of the table. They also serve the purpose of keeping the table flat over time. Now, I can't stress this enough, but the best way of making sure a tabletop stays flat is to, of course, use dry and stable wood. And the C-channels are there just in case any rapid or uneven changes in moisture content were to happen to this table, which could sometimes result in a little bit of cupping. And book match pieces are more or less always symmetrical in their grain pattern and all that. And put together like this, they make a really cool effect. And to get the most out of it, I try and be very mindful of where to cut off the live edge, because that's when you're gonna be matching the grain that's gonna be running like in the middle. And if I'm able to do a well enough job, you could see, like with this one, I'm fairly satisfied that we have a really nice symmetrical structure here in the center, and it gives a really cool effect. And it's like these little grain swirls going around in kind of like a curve there, and this little area over there with wider grain, and it all comes together up at the top over there, and with a little bow tie there connecting the pieces. It's gonna look really, really cool. With that, these bow ties are just mainly for decorations. They're not gonna serve any major function of keeping the slabs locked together. That's all the C-channels doing that. Next up is making all of the bow ties. The structural ones, meaning those serving a purpose of keeping a crack from opening up, all of these were made with the waste wood from when the slabs were cut to size. This helps them blend in a little bit better, as both the grain and the color of the bow ties will match the tabletop. Three more were to be added along the center, mostly as a design feature, as this was common with Nakashima's tables. These were, however, made from walnut. I've decided that this placement of the center bow ties is what feels the most Nakashima-esque to me, at least. So these are the final three bow ties that I'm gonna be installing here. And here's the nice crisp knife line here with the number 7 there and the arrow pointing upwards. It's telling me that this bow tie that has a number 7 and a little arrow is going to go in like this, because since these are hand cut, sometimes the angles aren't always as perfect as you might get it with a, say, a router template. And so if I were to put it the other way around and try and bang it in there, most likely it would leave a gap on two sides. So that's why I always try and put a number and an orientation arrow. The base for this table was also built using some of the waste wood from the tabletop, and some smaller slabs that came from the same tree as the big ones. Nothing too crazy here, since they were pretty much square to begin with. I just cleaned them up on the jointer and used some dominoes to join the smaller pieces together, and then a simple half lap joint were used to join the cross member to the base. So steel plates and threaded inserts make for a very easy assembly, which is convenient as this table were to be shipped to the client. He then had to put it together using a 10mm spanner wrench and some machine screws. Once everything has been sanded to 320 grit, the finish can be applied, and again, keeping with the spirit and feel of George Nakashima, a natural finish was used. This particular one was Otis oil, a combination of natural oils and waxes. So there it is. Turned out pretty cool if you ask me. So before I leave you, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.